Before we talk about prediction, let's do some quick retrieval practice for the earlier learning effects. What three learning effects have we learned about so far? Pause this video, write them down, and see if you can remember or come up with at least one classroom application for each before moving on. Okay, we have made it to our fourth and final question. How did you answer this one? Will asking students to predict what we are about to teach them help them learn it better? The answer, in fact, is yes. And this, by far, is the most incredible learning effect in my opinion. Making predictions about material to be learned increases the ability to understand that material and recall it later. If you are like me, then your first thought was probably, well, this happens because you are capturing students' attention when you ask them to make a prediction, and so they learn better because they are more attentive. While you definitely have this going for you, capturing students' attention isn't what makes prediction work so well. What asking students to make a prediction does is that it activates students' existing frameworks of knowledge. Whatever students already know about the topic to be learned will become activated. This activation actually prepares the brain to embed the answer, the new information, into a more richly connected network of knowledge. It's really like providing little neural hooks for the new information to cling to. Like I mentioned before, everything new that we encounter, we make sense of by relating it to what we already know. Meaning is created in our heads. It's a product of what a student already knows and can relate to whatever it is that we are teaching them. Let me show you a fascinating study that demonstrates this prediction effect. This study used what is referred to as a paired word association task. This type of task shows pairs of words to participants during a study phase, and then during a test phase, participants are given just one of the words from each pair and are asked to recall the other word that went with it. So, for example, a participant might be given the word whale, and that person would have to report the word mammal. In this study, the pairs of words were loosely related, but not related enough that a person could reliably guess the other word. During the study phase, one group was allowed to study each pair of words together for 13 seconds. The other group, Group 2, was presented with only the first word of each pair for 8 seconds. During that 8 seconds, Group 2 participants were asked to predict what the other word would be. Of course, they were wildly guessing. In the rare case that a participant did guess correctly, that data was dropped from analyses. So participants in Group 2 would see the first word for 8 seconds while guessing the word that went with it, and then for 5 seconds they would get to see the paired words together. So each group got to study the pairs for 13 seconds each, but Group 1 got to see the pairs together for the full 13 seconds. Group 2 only saw the pairs together for 5 seconds. During the test phase, when given just the first word of each pair, Group 1 recalled the second word an average of 55% of the time. Group 2, 67% of the time. Group 2 saw the pairs together for less time than Group 1, yet they outperformed Group 1. Even though they were totally guessing and guessing incorrectly that second word, the act of predicting helped them learn the pairs better. So, what does this tell us about students in our classrooms? Students will learn better if they are pre-tested on material, even if they get it all wrong. So, how might we apply this amazing effect to the classroom? See if you can come up with at least one idea before resuming this video. Let's go over some ideas for applying prediction to the classroom. Consider coming up with some pre-learning questions for students to answer. In some of my online classes, I really like giving students a list of questions to answer before reading or watching course material. Of course, I have to let students know that yes, I do want them to try and answer the questions before going through the material, and that no, I do not expect them to be able to answer them accurately. I have to explain to students that making predictions like this helps them learn the material better. You may also consider at the end of a class period posing a question to be answered at the beginning of the next class session. Give your students pre-tests. I know an instructor who does this at the beginning of each class session. He then structures his lesson by going through the test together with the class and interjecting information that would normally go into a lecture as he goes through the test, kind of like what we did with these videos. Make use of clicker questions during class. Clickers or any sort of student response system is a great way to get students to make these predictions during class. Also, be sure to get students to explain their thinking before giving them the answer. While prediction shows benefits even when students are completely guessing, do find opportunities to get them to apply what they have already learned. The point really is to get students to activate what they already know. For example, if students just read about a particular economic theory, begin class by describing a specific historical context and asking students what that theory would predict would happen next in that context. Or before asking students to read an article from the 1970s, ask them what was going on historically at that time and might have informed the author's perspective. Finally, let students try out something or take a stab at it, even if they are not ready. When teaching a new cognitive skill, let students try their hand at it and receive feedback even before they feel they are ready. All right, of the 4 learning effects we have talked about, which one is your favorite? Which one will you apply first to your own class?